remember blinking awake to white walls, the hum of machines, and the faint scent of antiseptic. My body ached in places I couldn't name. My mouth felt sewn shut. Every breath rattled like broken glass in my chest. But the worst pain wasn't physical. It was the moment I realized no one in that room knew who I was. They called me Mira. I wanted to scream, to tell them they were wrong, that I wasn't her, I was Maya. But my voice was gone, my face wrapped in gauze, and every word I tried to force out came back as a ghost of itself. At first, I thought it was a mix-up, a clerical error, an honest mistake, but then I saw her, my twin, standing at the foot of my bed, smiling like she'd just been reborn. She took my hand gently, leaned in, and whispered, "I've got you. Rest. Everything's taken care of." It felt comforting, until I saw what she was wearing. My favorite lavender sweater. The one Liam gave me on our second anniversary. I stared at her, trying to speak, to ask her why. She just patted my arm and turned away, her voice trailing behind her like perfume. That night, I lay in the hospital bed, trying to piece everything together. The crash, the rain, the scream, her voice, and then nothing. But something deep inside me began to unravel as I realized that Mira wasn't just helping me recover. She was replacing me. The horror didn't hit me all at once. It crept in slowly, like water seeping through cracks in a dam. I began noticing it in the nurses' conversations, in the way they avoided eye contact, and how they called her Miss Taylor with no hesitation. And I started asking myself the question that kept me awake long into the night. What if no one ever remembers who I really am? What if Mira didn't just borrow my life? What if she stole it? I wasn't always broken. There was a time, just 6 months ago, when I had everything I'd ever dreamed of. A great job as a creative lead at a top marketing firm. A fiancé who looked at me like I was the sun and the stars wrapped in skin. And a life I had built, not inherited. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Then Mira came back. She showed up at my door that rainy afternoon, soaked through her jacket, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. "I have nowhere else to go," she whispered. Her voice was soft, wounded, almost childlike. I should have closed the door, but I didn't, because Mira was my twin, my mirror, my blood. And no matter how twisted our history had become, I couldn't forget the little girl who once held my hand through the dark, when our parents screamed at each other from across the house. Mira had always been the wild one, the dreamer, the shadow. For every award I brought home, she brought home drama. For every steady step I took forward, Mira crashed headfirst into another mess. Rehab, a string of toxic relationships, a shoplifting charge I paid off silently, just to keep her name clean. She claimed she was clean now, sober, trying to start over, and she needed help. So I helped. I let her sleep in my guest room, gave her my extra key, introduced her to Liam. That should have been my second mistake. It started small. She began borrowing my clothes without asking. At first it was cute. "We used to share everything, remember?" she'd say with a smirk, wearing my blazer to a lunch date with friends I invited her to. Then came the subtle mimicry. She started saying the things I said, laughing like me, wearing her hair the same way I did for work. "I just love your confidence," she told me once, staring a little too long into my reflection in the mirror. "It's like you know who you are." I brushed it off, told myself she was just admiring me. That's what sisters did. But deep down, a pit had started forming in my gut. Then came the day I caught her in my perfume and whipstick, wearing my gold necklace. Liam's first gift to me, while standing barefoot in my bedroom. "I just wanted to see what it felt like," she said, her voice a whisper, her eyes unblinking. "To be you." I should have told her to leave. Instead, I laughed nervously and asked her to take it off. That night I cried in the shower. Something was wrong, off. But it was family, I kept telling myself. Family doesn't steal your life. Then came the crash. We were driving back from our parents' house. They were fighting again, and I needed air. Mira insisted on coming with me, said I looked too tired to drive alone. I remember her reaching over and turning up the radio, singing along to some old song we loved in high school. I forced a smile. "Do you ever wish we could switch places?" she asked suddenly. "What? Like, you be me and I be you, just for a little while?" I frowned. "Why would I want that?" Her jaw tightened. "Right, why would you want that?" The deer came out of nowhere. I swerved, tires screamed, glass shattered. And then, nothing. Underestimable, underco out of nowhere. I wish I could say waking up was a relief, but it wasn't. It was like surfacing from a dream, only to find yourself in a nightmare. My body was heavy, my throat raw, my face bandaged, unfamiliar. But worse than any of that was Mira's smile when she leans over me and whispered, "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." She wasn't talking about my recovery, she meant my life. The first time I saw her again, really saw her, was on the hospital television. It was late. The room was dark except for the flickering, but my dad was ready to leave, and then I waited on her day by day and meet someone's bed. My body hurt, my memories were frayed, and the nurses still called me Mira, like it was my name. Then I heard Liam's voice. I turned my head slowly toward the screen. There he was, my Liam, in a suit, standing outside the gallery we used to visit together, and beside him, holding his hand like she'd always belonged there, was me. No, her, Mira. She was dressed in one of my signature looks, cream turtleneck, gold hoop earrings, that soft blush lipstick Liam used to say made me look dangerously kissable. Her hair curled exactly the way I wore it on our last date night. But the worst part, she had my smile down to perfection. They looked like a couple in love, comfortable, familiar. She kissed his cheek as the reporter asked about his upcoming art project, and she laughed, my laugh. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled. My heart pounded against my chest like it was trying to burst free. I pressed the call button for the nurse over and over, screaming with my eyes because my throat was still too raw to form words. Nurse Carla rushed in, confused. "Mira, are you okay?" That name again. I shook my head violently. I tried to point at the TV. She followed my gaze, eyes narrowing as the camera panned back to Maya Taylor, standing proudly beside her fiancé. And I saw it, that flicker of doubt in the nurse's eyes. For a moment, she wasn't sure anymore. Neither was I. The next day, I demanded a mirror. They hesitated, told me I wasn't ready, but I needed to see. When they finally brought it, I felt my stomach churn. My hands trembled as I lifted the mirror to my face, and what stared back didn't feel like me. The right side was swollen, healing from reconstructive surgery. My lips looked stretched, different. My left brow had a scar splitting through it. I was still beautiful, but not the same, not the woman Liam kissed on TV. And suddenly, I understood. They think I'm her, and she's using the face we once shared to take over everything I built. But Mira wasn't just stealing my life. She was getting away with it. I began plotting my way out that night. I tore through every memory I could cling to. Passwords, private details, Liam's quirks, the birthmark on my inner thigh that no one else had. I whispered my truths to Nurse Carla every time she entered the room, hoping she'd start to see past my face. And I saw her soften. Listen, start to question. Still, the more I remembered, the more terrified I became, because Mira didn't just envy me, she wanted to become me. And the more I saw of her on the news, in pictures, even in brief social media glimpses the staff didn't know I could see, the more it hit me. She was better at being me than I had ever been. One night, Carla sat beside me after her shift. "There's something off," she whispered. "I looked through your file, and I found something." She slid a photo onto the bed. It was a snapshot from 6 months ago. A birthday party. 2 identical women, but only one with a silver ring on her right pinky finger. A gift from Liam after our trip to Italy. The woman in the hospital bed, me, was wearing the ring in the photo. The woman now walking around as Maya? She wasn't. Carla looked me in the eye. I think you're telling the truth. And for the first time since I opened my eyes, hope sparked like fire in my chest. But it wouldn't last long. Because as I would soon find out, Mira knew I was waking up. And she wasn't going to let me come back. The first sign that Mira knew I was waking up came in the form of flowers. A bouquet of white lilies arrived at the clinic 3 days after my breakdown in front of the TV. No name, no card, just a sticky note tucked between the petals, scribbled in delicate handwriting. Rest easy, sis. Don't stress yourself too much. M. I stared at it for a full minute, my blood turning to ice. My fingers curled around the paper like it might burn through my skin. There was something about her tone, so soft, so calm, like she was whispering lullabies while pressing a pillow over my face. She knew I was in here. She knew I was fighting, and she was mocking me for it. Later that night, Nurse Carla slipped into my room during her break. "Those flowers," she said, frowning. They weren't on the approved visitor list. I wanted to scream, to tell her that's the point. Mira didn't need a list. Mira was clever enough to work around them. Mira was always watching. That's when the dreams started. In them, Mira stood over me while I slept, brushing my hair, whispering lullabies only we knew from childhood. But her hands were cold. Her smile never reached her eyes. Sometimes I woke up with tears on my cheeks, uncertain if the dreams were even dreams anymore. Was she really here? The clinic felt less like a place of healing and more like a prison of silence. Every nurse who called me Mira was another brick in the wall Mira built to keep me caged. I could hear her in my mind, rehearsing my memories, laughing in my voice, wearing my story like a second skin. And then the second bouquet came, this time red roses, and the note was worse. "He says he still dreams about you. Cute, right?" The he was Liam. And the kiss mark at the end wasn't ink. It was lipstick, my shade. I broke down, sobbing into the bedsheets like a child. I felt helpless, forgotten, like I had died, and the world just didn't care enough to notice. But Carla did. She gripped my hands, her voice firm. "She's playing with you, but if she's watching you, we can use that." Her plan was risky, dangerous even. We would trick Mira into revealing herself, into slipping up, and when she did, I'd take everything back. But Mira wasn't just watching, she was preparing. Across town, in my apartment, she was carefully rearranging my life. She deleted old photos, erased them from the cloud, posted new ones with Liam smiling in my clothes, surrounded by my friends. She called my boss and tearfully said she couldn't remember her project timelines since the accident, but she was trying. She even adopted a slightly shakier tone on the phone, softening her voice just enough to make people feel guilty for questioning her. She was doing something worse than pretending. She was rehearsing being me so thoroughly that when I returned, I'd look like the imposter. And she wasn't done. Carla told me Mira had tried to request access to my medical records. She wanted to erase the real Maya from every file, every trace, every database. And what terrified me most wasn't what she'd already done. It was how calm she was while doing it. One night, just before lights out, I found a note taped to the underside of my meal tray. Folded neatly, in her handwriting. Just 5 words. "You're not ready to come back." I felt it in my bones. Mira was coming. And she wasn't coming to check on me. She was coming to finish what she started. I was sitting in the garden courtyard, wrapped in a wool blanket, when I saw her. At first, I thought it was another hallucination, a side effect of the medication. My mind had played tricks on me before, but this time, it wasn't my imagination. Mira was here. She strolled through the gate like she owned the place. Dressed in a tan coat, dark sunglasses, and a tight ponytail, she looked like every wealthy donor who visited the facility. But beneath her practiced poise was something more dangerous. Calculated control. She was wearing my scent, that warm vanilla and cedar blend Liam used to say reminded him of autumn nights and home. My stomach turned. She walked up to the front desk and signed in under the name Marissa Gray, one of our distant cousins. Clever. Just distant enough that no one would question the connection, just close enough that she could get access. I watched from behind a hedge of dying roses. I could barely breathe. 10 minutes later, she was in my room. I was brought back by a nurse and left sitting on the edge of my bed, my hands clenched, heart thudding like a warning drum in my chest. Then the door creaked open, and there she was, Mira, my sister, my thief, my jailer. She stepped in slowly, closed the door behind her, and gave me that same chilling smile she wore at our 10th birthday party, when she cut the cake before I blew out the candles. "You look better," she said, her voice like silk laced with venom, almost like your old self. I said nothing. She circled the room slowly, dragging her fingertips across the windowsill, the nightstand, my pillow. "I had to see you," she sighed, "to remind myself how much you depended on me. It's been hard, playing you, so exhausting." She leaned in close. "A damn good job." I could smell her perfume, my perfume. It made my skin crawl. She pulled something from her coat pocket, a silver ring, my ring, Liam's ring. She held it up, let it glint in the light. "He gave this to me again. Proposed at the beach last week. Isn't it romantic how things come full circle?" I blinked hard. My entire body was shaking. She leaned closer, voice low and sharp. "You won't make it out of here. You can scream, you can cry, but you've already been buried. I'm the one they love now." She stood, composed herself, and blew me a kiss. "Goodbye, Maya." And just like that, she was gone. That same evening, miles away, Liam sat alone at his laptop, reviewing digital photos from the past few weeks. He hadn't told Maya, but he had been feeling it. The shift. Her laugh was just a beat too sharp. Her stories were out of order. She forgot how he took his coffee. And tonight, as he scrolled through old messages, he saw something that chilled him. A screenshot from 6 months ago. A selfie of Maya holding a cup with Liam's girl, scribbled in Sharpie. Her ring on her finger. But it was on her left hand. In every photo now, it was on the right. And in those small details, reality cracked. Back at the clinic, I sat in the darkness, rocking back and forth, replaying Mira's words, until I thought I'd go mad. Then Carla slipped into my room with a flashlight and a black hoodie. "You've got 5 minutes before shift change," she whispered. "Liam called. He wants to see you himself." My eyes widened. Carla helped me into the hoodie, tucked my hair into a beanie, and guided me out the back door. I could barely walk. I was weak, terrified and trembling, but adrenaline pulsed through me like fire. We slipped past 2 nurses and through the staff exit. A car waited at the edge of the parking lot, headlights off. Every step felt like a war drum in my chest. I was almost free, but as I reached the car, I heard a voice behind me. "Maya?" I turned slowly, and there she was, Mira, standing under the orange glow of the security light, her eyes wide with disbelief, or maybe rage. Her lips curled into a smile, but her eyes stayed dead. "You really think you can just walk back into your life?" she hissed. I didn't answer. I got into the car, and for the first time since the crash, I felt the engine of my life start to turn again. I wasn't safe yet, but I was moving, and Mira wasn't going to get the final word, not this time. Liam didn't say a word when I stepped out of the car. He just stood there, under the porch light of the old lake house we used to escape to, when city life felt too heavy. I could see his chest rise and fall, his hands in his coat pockets, like he was trying to keep them from trembling. I couldn't speak yet, my throat still raw from weeks of silence and forced sedation, but I didn't have to. He looked at me, like he was seeing something impossible, something that shouldn't be standing in front of him, but was. His eyes dropped to my hands. The ring was gone. He looked back at my face. "Maya," he whispered. I nodded. He took one hesitant step forward, then another, like he was afraid I might vanish if he moved too fast. And then he was pulling me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could finally feel my ribs again. "God," he choked. "What did she do to you?" I collapsed into him, sobbing soundlessly, every part of me uncoiling in his arms. It felt like coming home, but one with bullet holes in the walls. Once inside, we didn't waste time. I wrote everything down, pages and pages. The hospital, the notes, the dreams, Mira's visits, the ring, the perfume, even the way she kissed him differently. I handed Liam a notebook full of memories only I could know. Dates, childhood scars, the story behind the scar on his shoulder from the time he fell while climbing a roof to hang lights. He sat in stunned silence, reading every word. Then he looked at me. "She said you changed after the crash," he whispered. "That trauma made you different." I gave a bitter laugh through my tears. "She changed, Liam. She became me." He nodded slowly, fury blooming in his eyes. "I believe you." The next morning, we went to the police. They didn't believe us. Not at first. Mira had already laid too much groundwork, legal documents, doctor signatures, even a therapist report detailing my supposed delusional behavior from years back. A forged document, no doubt. But Liam insisted on a DNA test, and so did Carla, who had already taken hair samples from me during our escape. While we waited for the results, we did the only thing we could. We watched. And Mira began to unravel. It started with the gala. She showed up in a silk red gown Maya had custom made 6 months before the crash. Only now, she wore it tighter, loud, more aggressively seductive than elegant. And she made a scene, drank too much, slurring her words. Started an argument with one of Liam's clients about a painting I'd once praised. "She's trying too hard," Tasha whispered to Liam from across the room. "That's not her. That's not Maya." Whispers started to spread. Then came the slip-up. In an interview with a local magazine, Mira, posing as me, was asked about a childhood trauma I'd spoken about publicly once. Our dog dying when I was 10. She smiled and said, "Oh yes, that golden retriever. I think his name was Baxter." Wrong. His name was Leo, and I had never owned a golden retriever. The article went viral. Fans of my work online started commenting, "Wait, that doesn't sound like Maya. That's not what she said in her memoir." The facade cracked, and I was there, waiting, ready to tear it down completely. Then, the call came. DNA results, 99.98% match. I was Maya Taylor. The woman living in my apartment, parading in my skin, wasn't. The police finally issued a warrant for identity theft and impersonation. They called it psychological fraud, but for me, it was far deeper. It was a soul theft. We didn't confront her at home. We confronted her on stage. At a public fundraiser where she was set to give a speech as Maya Taylor, marketing visionary. I stepped into the back of the room, dressed plainly, no makeup, no spotlight. Just me, raw, real, alive. She froze mid-sentence when she saw me. For the first time, Mira, my mirror, looked afraid. Liam stepped forward. So did the officers. Her mic dropped. Her perfect posture slumped. The crowd murmured. Phones were raised. And the image of two identical sisters, one confident, one cracking, spread like wildfire. Mira turned to me, wide-eyed, lips trembling. "You weren't supposed to wake up," she whispered. And I stepped closer, heart pounding like a drum of justice. But I did. They took Mira away in handcuffs. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't resist. She just stood there, head tilted, a curious smile playing on her lips, as if she were watching a movie she'd seen before. I thought I would feel victorious, vindicated, whole. But instead, I felt hollow, as if I had to mourn the death of someone who hadn't died. She passed me as the officers led her out, and just before she stepped through the door, she turned to me. Her smile widened. "You're not as strong as you think, Maya." I swallowed hard, trying not to flinch. She leaned closer, eyes glittering. "There are things you've forgotten, things I've kept safe for you. You think you've taken your life back, but you never really knew what was yours to begin with." Then she was gone. Those words should have meant nothing, but they planted something in my chest, a seed of doubt. The days after Mira's arrest were a whirlwind. Interviews, statements, press inquiries. Everyone wanted to hear the real story, but telling it didn't make it feel more real. In fact, the more I repeated it, the more surreal it became. I had to learn how to live again. I moved back into my apartment, though everything inside that hope will not be relieved, as I am. My clothes, my shoes, my sheets, all worn by someone who had tried to become me. I scrubbed the bathroom for hours until my fingers bled. I threw out my pillowcases. I replaced the locks. But I couldn't wash away the sense of violation. Liam stayed with me at first. We slept in the same bed, but it felt like a stranger's house. He was gentle, patient, but sometimes I caught him looking at me like he still wasn't sure which twin I was, or worse, like he was unsure who he had loved more. I didn't ask. Some questions are better left unanswered. It was a week later, while sorting through Mira's boxes, that the real shock came. A small black journal, taped under the drawer of my old writing desk. I almost missed it. But as I pulled the drawer out to throw it away, I heard the thud. Inside, the handwriting was Mira's, but twisted, obsessive. Pages and pages of entries that started off innocent and spiraled into something unhinged. She always gets everything, but I'm smarter. I study her. I know her rhythms, her voice, her passwords, her flaws. She trusts me. Stupid girl. He kissed me. Not her. He thought I was her. That means I can be her. Mum told me I was born first. I remember that. Maya doesn't. The nurse switched our bracelets. I was supposed to be Maya, not her. I dropped the book, breath catching in my throat. What? I read the line again, my pulse pounding. The nurse switched our bracelets. Could it be a lie? A delusion? Or had Mira been telling herself a truth I had forgotten? That night I dug out our baby box from my closet. Old photos, hospital tags, a birth certificate copy. My bracelet said twin B. Mira's had said twin A. I had never thought much of it. But now, the doubt crept in like poison. Had my entire life been a mistake? Was Mira really trying to steal something? Or was she just trying to take it back? I stared at the ceiling long into the night, haunted by her words, her smile, her journal. Yes, she stole my life. Yes, she hurt me. But now, I wasn't sure if she was only driven by envy, or by a deep fractured belief that everything I had was rightfully hers. I never imagined that my healing would begin with a lie. Not the lie Mira told the world, but the one our parents never corrected. It started with the journal. That sentence wouldn't leave me. I was born first. The nurse switched our bracelets. So I went to the only people who might know the truth. I found Mum in the backyard, trimming roses like the last 6 months hadn't happened. When I asked about the bracelets, she froze. The clippers dropped from her hand. "You read her journal?" she said flatly. "I need to know." She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her fingers twisted into each other like vines. There was confusion. "You were both taken to the nursery. There was a mix-up. A nurse panicked, but the hospital assured us they fixed it. So they guessed, I whispered. They guessed who was who. She nodded slowly, tears building in her eyes. You were always calm. Mira screamed all the time. They thought the quiet one was Twin B. And you never told us? What difference would it have made? She whispered. You both had the same face, the same blood. We thought if we raised you with love, none of it would matter. But it did matter. It mattered to Mira. I stood in front of the facility's thick glass window for what felt like hours before pressing the button. She looked up slowly from her chair in the visitation room, her hair wild now, her skin pale. But her eyes, those sharp, endless eyes, still sparkled. Well, she said with a lazy grin, took you long enough? I sat down on the other side of the glass. I read your journal. Did it make you wonder? I didn't answer. She leaned forward. You don't even know if you're really Maya, do you? No, I said. But I know who I am now, and that's enough. She laughed, the sound hollow. You always did take the easy way out. No, I said softly. I just chose not to live in the past. Her smile faltered. There was something in her expression, something between rage and grief. As if she thought she'd finally won, only to realize the prize didn't fill the emptiness she carried. Mira, I said gently, why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you ask me for help instead of stealing it all? Because, she said through clenched teeth, her voice breaking, you wouldn't have given it. And I realized then, she was right. I might have pitied her, I might have offered help, but I never would have handed over my life. I left her there, behind the glass, behind pain, behind the years of rivalry disguised as sisterhood. As I walked out into the afternoon light, I felt lighter, not healed, not whole, but something close. I never did confirm the truth about the bracelets. Maybe I was born Maya, maybe I wasn't. But it didn't matter anymore. Because I survived, because I fought for my name, because who you are isn't defined by who got there first. It's who chooses to stay. 6 months later, I stood in a gallery, surrounded by art, my own, Liam by my side, friends whispering and clinking glasses, a photo of me smiling, my real smile, framed on the wall. Someone asked, so, what's next? I looked at the canvas behind me. It was a painting of 2 identical girls holding hands, one looking forward, the other fading like smoke. I smiled and said, I'm finally writing my own story.